Yeah, that
I
would
like
do
cinnamon
it.
rolls,
I do like cinnamon rolls.
but I got too many cinnamon rolls right up above my belt line. So
You better. We're rolling. You better be careful what you say. What's going on, everyone? This is the Aggie Game Day Extra podcast. I'm senior Texas A&M sports writer Travis Brown here at KBTX alongside chief meteorologist Max Crawford and sports reporter Nicole Griffith. Man, I am on
You're doing
my
pretty good.
game these last 2 weeks, except for the fact that like all of last week's pod was, it was lost in oblivion.
It is chilly in here.
It is really cold.
Is it not?
Yeah.
You control that.
No, no, I do not control the
You
HVAC.
control all air temperature.
The studio temperature is the most like polarizing thing. It is crazy how it's either way too hot or way too cold, and I kind of feel like this digital studio is the same way. And it's not my fault. I'm not like pleading to anybody to fix it. I'm just
I have
saying
goosebumps
this hot
right
cup
now.
of coffee is actually quite nice. Right now.
I could see this is great for me. I like it cold. I like a nice breeze blowing on me. So like I could come work in here and be very happy.
Okay, well come on in. It's your office now.
We mentioned some snacks. Easter's coming up.
Yes.
What's your favorite candy?
Chocolate?
Well, any?
Yeah.
Okay, well great podcast.
Let's go home.
Nicole, what's your favorite candy?
I love like if it's not chocolate, like I feel like there's two different types of candies, right? Like the hard candies and the chocolates, but I'm a gummy worms, gummies.
Ooh, okay.
Like
I respect
Lifesavers, Jolly Ranchers.
You know what's good around Easter? The big sweet tarts that are shaped like bunnies and eggs and things.
Oh.
Those are really
I'm
good.
not familiar with those.
They're
but
like, a quarter, besides about a quarter.
I'm not a big candy guy, but I could be into that.
Like that, like some hot tamales. Maybe some bottle caps. I like the fruity candy.
Okay.
So
That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
You can have them. You can have
Okay,
them.
well.
But, okay, no, so I do have a more specific answer. And I always forget what brand it is.
So we're going to talk about some football.
That's fine.
What
it's
is
really
it? What
not
is
that
it?
big a
It's
deal.
like a Cadbury egg? Or
No,
is that
it's
what you're
not
saying?
like a Cadbury egg, and I always call it that, but it's not. They're honestly like M&Ms, but the ratio of chocolate to the candy shell is like way, way more tilted in favor of chocolate, and they're like little eggs. And I always forget the brand and what they're called, but they come in like these little bags, and they're like little chocolate eggs, and they're just really essentially just big old pieces of chocolate with like a very, very thin candy shell.
When you
I
were a
don't know what they're
kid,
called.
did you get the big chocolate bunny?
Yeah, and I ate the whole daggum thing
And
in one
felt
sitting,
so
and
sick.
that's part of the reason that I have some of the health problems that I have today.
That took a
the
turn
Easter
for the
bunny,
dark.
the chocolate Easter bunnies.
The
You gave me the floor to keep talking about candy, Travis.
well, okay. Well, you can't fix the air in here, so I figured we'd.
my apparently my dad mailed me and Mason chocolate bunnies, and they supposedly arrived about 4 days ago, and we haven't checked the mailbox, and so I'm kind of afraid of what might be in there.
the gelatinous
Yeah.
goo that's
Maybe
going to be
some
filling
good hot
your.
chocolate this afternoon.
Oh, gross.
Thanks, Dad.
Gross.
Love
Well, it's because Easter is right around the corner. So is Texas A&M's spring game. We're in the middle of spring football. There's so many springy football-y things happening right now.
When is the spring game? Is it this weekend?
It is Saturday.
Saturday at 2.
I know what I'm doing on Saturday at 2. When do the Stars play on Saturday?
I believe it's a night game.
Okay. Oh. I know what I'm doing on Saturday now.
Not getting your behind off the couch.
Yeah. Well,
Would you go to the
get
spring
my
game?
behind to Kyle Field. I
Okay,
don't know.
yeah.
Yeah, I would go. The weather looks okay. It looks a little hot, but it should be fine.
I'm still on team get Max a credential for spring game. Let you roam about
I was leaving that up to you.
the premises. Yeah, we'll figure
Nicole,
that out.
are you going to be at the spring game?
It'll be Travis and I.
Wonderful.
Holding down the fort.
Wonderful. What are we going to be looking for, guys? What are we going to be looking for for the Aggie football team?
Hold on. Before we get there.
okay.
Before we get there.
Sorry.
Before we get there.
I'm so
I want to
sorry.
talk something else.
All right.
Because this has been the rage of college football over the last week or so. And that is the whole drama of Nico Iamaleava.
Nice.
I think I said that right.
I think you did pretty good there.
The quarterback previously from Tennessee, and the drama that's going on up there because basically we had our first NFL-style holdout.
And as of the recording of this podcast, he has not found a team, right?
Correct.
Officially.
He has not officially not found a team yet. He's still, out on the market. But what do we think about this? What is this? Is this the apocalypse of college football? Like so many people are saying that it is officially over and done. Is this just the next thing? Like how are we processing this whole situation? Because it is pretty remarkable. It's very new and different.
I would say it's the next step in college football of the unknown. Well, now we know that players will hold out if they're not getting the money that they thought that they wanted or needed or agreed to or whatever the contract negotiations were. But now players, it only takes one. But what we're seeing is the fallout of it, right? Like Nico, I'm just going to go with Nico for the podcast.
Good. I think that's probably good.
Good.
The only other Nico that I think about when I hear Nico is a Nico who is not to be named anymore.
It's been a bad month for Nikos.
It has.
It really has.
Yes. Definitely, we're not definitely talking about that Nico on this
not
podcast.
That Nico.
But I think it only takes one player to be like, okay, well, I'm going to do that. But what we're seeing is that Nico from Tennessee hasn't landed anywhere.
Right.
It's not like it's the free agency of the NFL where, I held out. Well, okay, well, now this team wants to scoop in and here's my offer. I saw a report that Tulane pulled out of their contract negotiations with him. What? We don't know where he's going to go and what the options are.
Well, the important thing too about all this to specify is the fact that in the SEC right now has a rule that in the spring transfer window, you can't transfer from SEC school to SEC school, or you have to sit out a year. So that even in this holdout situation, he loses a little bit of that leverage because it's not like he can leave Tennessee and go to Kentucky or Alabama. He has to find a home outside that footprint and outside that money base.
You know the quarterback at Kentucky right now?
Zach Calzada. Right?
That is true. Yeah, you're right.
And I'm pretty sure they named him starter. I could be completely wrong about that, but
Nico better not be going to Kentucky.
Nah, Calzada's got it down. He's locked it down.
Speaking of quarterbacks that beat Alabama,
yes.
So what's your thoughts as the AFib of college football?
as the really irregular heartbeat and somewhat concerning heartbeat of the A&M fan base. Yes, I don't know. That's not an adequate answer? I know, especially because
you are rolling with the hot takes today and podcast answers.
I don't like hot tamales, and I don't like these holdouts. So I think that's my gut reaction is I don't like that he did that. I think he got some bad advice. Or some bad leadership around him, not necessarily from the football program or whatever. I respect. I'm not going to say that I love Tennessee's way of doing this, but I respect that they said, you know what, there's no one person who's above Tennessee football, and I do wonder if that is setting a precedent for especially some not as proven people who think that they are worth a dollar amount, and the school says, well, maybe not so much. So it's hard for me to completely take a side here. I think my gut feeling is to want to be this is kind of a good thing that it is happening the way that it is, because I think if somebody in the open market, if you want to call it, did say, okay, we'll give you $4 or $5 million a year, I do think that could have led to a little bit of a levee breaking with some other players saying, okay, well, let's try this holdout. But now that it's kind of seems to have fallen a little bit flat, it's almost like, oh, maybe that wasn't a good idea. I think this is just another chapter in this void of leadership era that we're in right now with college football, and really I think college sports, and that the NCAA refuses to do anything. Maybe that's not quite fair to them, but
hands tied.
Okay, sure, but clearly. I don't know what the answer is here, because if conferences start making their own rules, then that could put them at an advantage or a disadvantage. And so I don't know what the next step is here, but I know that this is a part of that next step. And I do think that, we were talking about what's the headline for this podcast going to be, and you said, well, could this happen at A&M? And I think absolutely it could. Mm-hmm. It absolutely could. I don't think like Marcel Reed is going to do this, but I don't know, like another player for sure. And I'm not going to like call out somebody and say I think he'll be somebody to do this, but I think it's possible.
Well, you mentioned a good point. Mike Elko actually was asked about this situation today, and Marcel Reed was jokingly brought up as a part of that. Let's hear what Mike Elko had to say about this whole situation.
I'm going to keep my. You should ask Marcel if I had any words on how I might handle a similar situation in recent times with him, because I'll probably just keep that between him and I. Listen, we're all on the same page, I think, across the board, right? Everybody agrees that the players deserve something. Everybody agrees that this system has caused this to become what it's become. Everyone believes that the system currently is not working. And it's not good for anybody. I think I heard somebody, I think maybe it was Kirby, say that like the long-term ramifications of this, when we look back at this period of what the development of young people looks like 10 years from now, I think we're going to be really embarrassed with what that actually looks like. But again, it is what it is, and so nobody really cares what we think.
You hit the nail on the head, and the fact that I think the most important part of this is that Tennessee kind of called his bluff a little bit. The whole point was, oh no, there's going to be all this bad PR because the quarterback is unhappy and they're going to have to pay him. And they said, nah, we're good. I think it would have been a bigger Pandora's box and a bigger can of worms had Tennessee relented and tried to and let him miss practice and then come back and try to pay the money. It would be interesting if it was a different player. If it was because Nico was a highly recruited, highly touted guy, but he had a okay season last year.
He had an up and down season, and I think a lot of the haters have loved recently to just post some of his lowlights. Like at the end of the Arkansas game, for instance, where he just kind of like ran out of bounds when the clock expired and stuff. And so like the spotlight has, I don't know that you can say unfairly at this point, just because of what led to this point, has definitely been shown on him. And I don't think, from Tennessee's perspective, I don't think you have another choice. I think you have to put your foot down and say that, right?
Right. Here's the other point too, that why I think this could be somewhat of a one-off situation and maybe won't be as common moving forward, is that we're in that weird situation where the House settlement hasn't been approved, revenue sharing hasn't been approved, and there's been lots of reporting out there where schools have been working out front-loaded, NIL deals through their third-party collectives with players so that they can kind of get more money above what that $20.5 million cap of revenue sharing that's going to be put in place because of the House settlement. And so you saw it in men's basketball. That's kind of what Bucky McMillan was saying in his introductory press conference, is that they won't be able to be as selective in the transfer portal because a lot of those players jumped in early thinking they make more money by getting in early and finding their spot before that last Monday supposed approval of the House settlement. Well, that got kicked down the road a little bit, and now part of the football transfer portal is a part of this whole situation that they didn't necessarily think it would be. And so I think because there was the potential for even more money to be able to get up above that salary cap is one of the reasons why someone probably in his camp, I'm assuming here, got in someone's ear in their camp and said, hey, you could really test the market now because there is more money to be had in this one transfer portal right now. Now, it seems to have potentially backfired. We'll see where he lands and how that works, but the schools have to be willing to pay that money too, and the market might have corrected itself. But I think because there's not that situation where teams can be paying over the salary cap because of a little bit of a loophole moving forward, that you might see it as much because there's only $20.5 million to be had each year, escalating year by year, and players and agents and things will know that. So I think that's a little bit of an interesting situation. How do you think the coverage of the fans would be if an A&M player decided to go this route?
I think it would draw numbers. I think people would be interested. I think, like if we go to practice tomorrow and, Marcel Reed's not there, why? Like, is he... And this is all speculation, right? Is he sick? Is he sitting out? Is he, like, when did they know, like, he was sitting out of practice? And what I thought was interesting with the Nico situation was it broke, and the news came down, on Friday, and their spring game was on Saturday. And so it was just, the show goes on, right? And so, but I think for A&M, I think that they would, I don't want to speak for Max, but I think Max is maybe glad that it started at Tennessee and not started at A&M.
Oh, absolutely.
To be the first person to do that. But I think it would be very interesting. It'd be very interesting to cover because this is, the unprecedented times of the college football landscape, and there's no, rules right now for this, and so it would be not cool to cover, but it'd be like, because I have friends who are in college or are in professional markets, and they're like, this player is still holding out or still not at practice, and where we see all the players at practice for college. So
I think and the only real indication we have, I'm sure there's plenty of others, but for me, what is my indication that, at least in our specific case-by-case basis, is that Marcel Reed is not going to do that. You mentioned how, the holdout happened on Friday and then Saturday was the spring game. The Vols Athletics or Vols Football or somebody like that on Instagram just posted a picture of the dude who, was the next guy up and ended up starting for the spring game or whatever. And said our guy or something like that in the caption. And I did see that Marcel Reed reposted it, on Instagram. Not that Marcel Reed has been through the exact situation, but he's definitely been in a all of a sudden next man up mentality and stuff like that. And so it doesn't seem to me like Marcel is that type of personality to want to hold out in a situation like that where clearly he is the guy. And maybe also, I'd like to think that we're taking care of him from a certain perspective. But I think the empathy that I get for Vols fans here is kind of, it's not the same, but it's similar. That off season when both Kyle and Kyler left, and you're sitting there and you're like, well, what the heck is that about? In this situation, I would argue that Nico had a better reason to leave than Kyle and Kyler did, at least as far as the dollar amount is concerned, right? But you still feel like your heart's been ripped out because you're like, well, why do you hate it here? I don't know. It's like that, and then some fans are like, well, bye, So I don't know.
And I'm going to get into this saying that this is just an aside. We don't know the whole situation behind what's going through with Nico and the people in his corner. But I was listening to the whole Texas House of Representatives debate on the new NIL bill that's going through there. Yeah, I was. You had to watch it on the little screen above your desk the whole time.
He's just he's loving this.
Yeah, and
this stuff over my head. So I'm glad you're taking this one.
Sometimes I think I'm just so many games. It's like a new game to watch. So the
what a terrible game.
Yeah, debating on the House floor. One of the things, the arguments that was raised against the bill, of course, it passed the House anyway, but was the fact that there isn't any regulation for the people who could potentially represent these athletes. In the pros, in the NFL, if you're going to be an NFL agent, you have to register with the NFL and prove your credentials and show that you're a legit agent that has, everyone's best interest in mind. But in college, there is no clearinghouse for agents. There is no registration. It's just anybody's dad, anybody's friend, some dude that hits you up on Instagram because you're a 5-star athlete and says, I know money, I can do this. And so that is another concern going on. I'm not saying that that's happening right now in that situation, but it is fair to understand that there is a lot of moving pieces when it comes to these deals in the college level that are different than the pro level. Too, because it's different than that in the pro level too, because the college athlete has open free agency every year. A player, if he's in the middle of a contract and is trying to get a bigger contract or a raise or an extension, and he holds out, he just isn't playing. There's not really, he doesn't have as much leverage as the players do. So
Which
anyway,
is silly.
Yeah, it is.
It's silly in a couple of different ways in that I don't think that really benefits the player, to be completely honest. But I almost wonder if, and I don't even know that they have the power to do this, but it used to be if you transfer, you have to sit out unless you're a grad transfer type of thing. I wonder how much of the current problems with college football that would fix if you brought back that rule. And you said if you transfer, you have to sit out 1 year. Unless your coach leaves or your coach gets fired or whatever, then you can, go and immediately be eligible to wherever you go.
It would. I think it would fix stuff because, that's what makes the open free agent. That's what gives the players all the leverage.
Yeah.
But it's already gone through the court systems, and the courts rule that it's anti-competitive. So getting that cat back in the bag, the only way to do that is federal legislation from Congress that gives the NCAA some antitrust exemptions, or to declare players employees.
There it is.
Let them unionize and collectively bargain. But that has its whole other set of issues too.
Don't care. Do it.
Because especially like somewhere at Texas A&M, they're state employees, and state employees can't unionize.
Well,
and
figure it out.
Yeah, there's a whole thing. So the House settlement thing will help a little bit. And it seems like there might be some movement in Washington. Last week, like every AD just about and conference commissioners were in Washington with a lobbying effort, talking to their representatives. Trev was up there with a whole delegation from A&M. And so there seems maybe to be some movement there, but we'll see. So again, as we would call around here, that's a little bit of your broccoli for today. Let's get into
a little bit, Travis.
Let's get into some of the fun. That was a little bit of your.
You want this guy to? I dropped my phone. You want this guy to just like go off on a tangent, to start talking about House legislation stuff and NIL.
Yeah.
And Travis is your guy.
Yeah, I'm a nerd.
You need
fine.
like an 800 number.
An 800 1-800 NIL questions.
If anyone wants to discuss.
Hey y'all, it's Max, and if you've been watching the pod, you know this by now, that we have a new official sponsor of the Aggie Game Day Extra podcast. And it is a familiar face. You know him, you have seen him around Aggieland for many, many years. Say hello to C&J Barbecue. Now, I don't know if there are many of you out there, but if you live in the Brazos Valley and you have not been to C&J Barbecue yet, what on earth are you guys doing? The crew at C&J started out smoking just about 20 pounds of meat a day in a tiny gas station on a Harvey Road. Now, they serve over 2,200 pounds every single day across 3 locations. So you know it's good. They've fed President Bush, catered for Willie Nelson. Yeah, Willie. But most importantly, they've been feeding Aggies and locals for over 40 years. In fact, I had myself some at a catering event last weekend, and the brisket was absolutely amazing. Don't even get me started on the sides and the appetizers, because Justin is always cooking up some amazing stuff. Just get there, see, smell, and taste for yourself. Tell them the guys sent you. C&J Barbecue, a family tradition.
Max, get yourself together.
Yeah, I know. I'm not going to get it. I'm just going to leave it on the floor.
Okay, well,
I'm just going to leave the phone there.
You tell me what you're the most excited about for spring game, and I'll grab your phone for you, okay?
Okay, thank you. I love the spring game. I know you guys do not, because y'all have to go out there, and that's another time for y'all to be sweaty for a game that doesn't count. I mean, that's why I would be.
It's good video. It's better than practice video.
Yes, right? And, I don't know, there's fans there, and you can buy popcorn and beer. What's not to love? It's football out there. So, yeah, I'm excited for that. I want to see a couple of quarterbacks throwing the ball. I want to see Marcel. I want to see Miles throw the ball. I want to see if how our running backs are looking. I want to see how our offensive line is looking. I think that's what I'm focused on. And I know that one of the last couple words before we started all the spring stuff that Elko was talking about was how the defense is going to shape up and stuff like that. And a lot of people, I think, are taking a quote from him today out of context about the defense. But I want our offense to move. I'm not worried about our defense, because I think Elko's going to figure that out. I'm worried about our offense scoring more points.
Before I get on my soapbox about spring games, what is your take? What do you want to
Nicole?
see over there?
Do you like spring games?
They're okay. So I was at my only spring game. I don't know why I didn't. Was it last year when they used half the field? Or was that 2 years ago?
I don't know.
That was 2 years ago.
I think it was 2 years ago.
That was Jimbo's last year
Okay.
because they were renovating the south
end zone.
And
yeah.
then
yeah.
last year it was rainy, and I also had to go cover track. So I stayed for like a quarter and a half, and then I went to track.
Yeah.
So what's interesting, it is Easter weekend and the holiday weekend. Baseball, softball are gone. Like, it is just it is the spring game.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's going to affect attendance a little bit. I'm sorry, Nicole. Go ahead, and then I'll rant again.
Well, I'm excited, to get out on Kyle Field again. It's nice. It'll be, the spring is. Torian York explained it I asked him, like, if he likes the spring game. Do you like going out there and playing in front of the fans for the spring? It's not, like I've said, it's the appetizer to the fall. And he said, like, they can cut loose more.
Yeah.
Like, they can go out there, like, in fall camp, games are coming up. Like, they are locked and ready to go, where, not that they're not ready to go for the spring game, but they're able to, like, play loose and play a little more, like, free. And so I think that's what I'm interested in. It also seems like in a spring game, someone always breaks free. Like, someone always stands out. And then you're like, okay, well, now we got to talk about this person because they had 2 catches for 80 yards. And then that's all we're talking about for the next 4 months because it's all we have.
Which is, I think, what was his name? Jacob Bostwick, who I think is already out of here. That was Tyler's guy last spring.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah. Here, let me get on my
agree.
soapbox first,
All right,
and then you
Travis.
can get on your
That's
soapbox.
I don't feel like you ever got off.
You're right. No, you would know if I got off of a soapbox. There would be a height
There's a box
differential.
right behind you, so.
Yeah. So, from a reporting standpoint, the whole thing with spring practice, the spring game, and really fall practice too, is that so we only get to go in for like 15, 20 minutes to watch practice. And the spring game, you brought it up, is a good quote, good thing to talk about, is he was asked if the general fan, there was conversations about from Jay Bateman, the defensive coordinator, that there would be some changes to the defense, that they've worked on some things that made it different from last year. And so he was asked, Elko was asked if the casual fan would see some of those differences, or if that's something that they're not going to put on film because spring game's on TV and other teams can see it. And he said, no, it's going to look like it was last year. And it was in response to saying, we're not going to put any of those wrinkles, those new things out there for people to see. Not that the defense is going to look exactly the same. But to that point, we don't know what the baseline is. We don't know what the rest of practice looked like. We don't know if what they're showing us in the Indy drills for the 15 minutes we're out there is that actually the guy who's starting, who's going first in the drill, or is he actually last? My perfect case scenario was fall 20. When was Jimbo's first season? 2017? 18. The fall of 2018. We're out there, and there was this one player, this transfer, who was getting just dog cussed every single rep. And just, I thought he was going to be the worst player. I did not think he was going to see playing time, because every time he ran a route or did a play, the coaches were all over him. And he just looked deflated, and I thought, man, this guy's going to be a bust. Jay Sternberger.
I was going to guess Sternberger.
Yeah, it was Jay Sternberger. And he was just getting berated Now, I think it turned out to be the fact that they didn't know what the Jimbo came in. They didn't have any tight ends under Sumlin, really. And so they needed him to be good because the cupboard was pretty bare in that situation. But you just can't, like for everything that you write, for every player, there's always that player you said that's 2 catches for 80 yards, but he's like the sixth string guy, and he did it against the 3rd string A&M players, and he's never going to see the field. Like, it's not reality. Mm-hmm. And so that's my problem with it, is that so much can be made of what you see in these situations, but you don't know if they're actually calling the real plays. If this guy is actually being in consideration of the depth chart, or everybody is just hurt and can't participate, so he's getting some run in the spring game. It feels disingenuous in reporting, because you don't know what the reality is going to be in a few months. And it just, so anytime there's the practice, people have to do the practice reports, and people have insights and stuff. I've never done them because I don't feel like it's fair to the reader that I don't know what the baseline is. I don't know what the conversations, I don't know what the drill is that they're working on and what they're trying to work on. So then to report that this guy did good or bad, or is looking good, or is first, or is second, I don't really actually know that, and the coaches aren't going to tell me that. So that I'll just step off my soapbox now. That's why I don't like spring practice, spring games, is because it's all kind of fantasy world reporting.
Okay. Do you want to move on to baseball then? And softball?
Well, no. I
maybe
want
some
to know.
basketball?
I want to know what you think about spring game.
And we have different perspectives, right? And so my biggest thing that I want to say to you after you saying all that is, who cares? Because it's football, and I get to watch football, and I get to go to Kyle Field, and that's why I'm going.
On
right?
your off day.
On my off day.
So
right,
we have
exactly.
different rules.
Right, and y'all, it's a work day for y'all, right? Like, there is content that there is expected to be generated from y'all for this thing. And so immediately, obviously, I have a different perspective of that. But I want to see Marcel's throwing motion look better. I want to see our offensive line getting after some people and stuff like that. And then conversely, I want to see if our defensive line responds to that. And am I going to be able to tell from the spring game, we're going to be good? I think no. I think it would honestly be foolish to draw additional conclusions. But as a former football player, I loved spring football because that spring game was just, it was an excuse to go out there and hit each other, honestly. And then, you did more summer and fall workouts. So you got everybody healthy or strong or whatever just ahead of the season. So, it's a different step in the process that is football. And I think it should be celebrated. And I think also that there's an impasse here. You got to decide if you want to go all in on a spring game or if you want to just kind of let it be a thing. And right now I kind of feel like it's the latter. We're not advertising it a whole lot about, not we as in KBTX, but A&M is not, making a huge thing of the spring game. I haven't seen a lot of social posts about be here, be there and stuff like that, which is almost why I almost forgot that it was this weekend. And then there are schools like OU or Georgia or Bama that have done their spring games and have sold out the stadium. It seems like we're not headed in that direction. We're not moving to make it a super big experience, and I'm sure there's a reason behind that. And so maybe just the diehard folks or the parents who have kids who love football and stuff like that are going to go and be there, and that's it, and that's fine.
But that's interesting because for as many coaches around the country who have been reported as saying things like they would like to do away with the spring game, they're not going to have a spring game, it's going to be a practice, they want to scrimmage another team. Mike Elko has been like, no, I like spring practice, I like the spring game, it's good, we're going to play a real game, it's not going to be some kind of weird point system thing. And so at least internally it does seem like there's a big emphasis on spring game that might actually not be there in some of the programs.
Yeah, and I think this could kind of devolve into a conversation that we kind of talked about a few weeks ago about if you were the AD, what would you do? If that's what we're going to do and Elko wants us to continue to have spring games and stuff, let's make a spectacle of it, right? I loved the idea of bringing back Aggie Legends for the halftime show and have them doing a little flag football thing, and maybe they're going to do that again this time. I don't know. That's kind of the point, is that I don't know, right? What other events do you have centered around that? Or do you not, because it's Easter weekend? But at the same time, you're the one who scheduled it Easter weekend. So that's kind of where I'm sitting, is if you're trying to generate more buzz and even revenue for the athletic department, let's make a thing out of it.
Well, they probably scheduled it. I have no context. I'm not sure, but baseball and softball have been at home so much.
Right.
So maybe they just didn't want to have...
Yeah. And I think that is absolutely a possibility, because in the past they have waffled between okay, we're going to do it on Parents Weekend where it's also Aggie Ring Day and there's also a baseball series and we're also going to try to squeeze spring football in there. I think they decided to go against that model this time. I don't know the reason. But yeah, that's a very good point.
But there will be one fan there, and it'll be Matt.
that's the plan, man. If it's at 2:00, I'm gonna try to get Mason down for a nap early, and then wake up and go. We'll see. We'll try.
To your point, yes, though there is things to keep an eye out on. You said you want to see Marcel. He mentioned in spring ball that he wants to hit 70% completion percentage of the season.
Yeah.
How accurate is he going to be? The continuity, the continuity offensive line is going to not be a thing to see because they split those guys up amongst the teams.
I want to see Mario and KC catching passes.
Wide receivers. That's
Cool.
something.
Yeah.
And the defensive backs, because that's what kind of Mike Elko raved on or raged against after the bowl game last year.
Healthy Tyreek Chappelle, hopefully.
Is to kind of see what that looks. What do you want to see?
I want to see a quick game.
A running clock.
Running clock. I want to see Marcel. It's going to be hard with Marcel because he's a dual threat quarterback, uses his feet, can't tackle him, can't really touch him, so we'll be seeing him throwing it more. I want to see, how does Ruben Owens look?
Yeah.
Like, he's been out for a while. How does KC, how does he fit into the mix? Who else is that? Terry Bussey. Does he go to the wideout position, and how does he look? And then the defense, I think it's just the defense I'm not concerned about, but it's just gonna be interesting to see who they roll out. For the spring game, I kind of go into it with like blank slate. Like, I just hit record and then report on what I see.
Yeah. I think that's a great policy.
And a lot of talk about the defensive line, how you replace those three guys probably are going to get drafted. Well, Torian York was one of the guys who was picking a captain who picked the team. His 1-1 overall was Cassius Howell. If you want to,
I'm excited to watch that dude play, man.
Yeah, if you want to power rank players, that was the number one guy picked. So that's another interesting tidbit to look at. So,
and those rosters should be coming out tonight.
Yes, they should. So we're recording this Wednesday afternoon, so that there'll be a little bit more information on that
the lookout
by the time that you.
Max will have it, and he'll be analyzing it. And
Very much so. Yes. Or I'll look at it and I'll go, okay, let's just watch it. That's kind of the approach that I'm going with this whole thing. Is we've got a lot of cool sports coming out. We just finished Masters, and now we're doing like the NBA play-ins and the NHL. I guess the official playoffs for the NHL and the NBA, they all seem to be starting on Saturday. Am I wrong about that?
I think so. I mean, I know the NHL. I'm an NHL guy, so NHL, yes.
Cool, man. More sports to watch. Darn. Like, okay. Again, much different perspective than you guys, but there's stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
And baseball's on a streak.
Baseball is on a streak.
On a streak.
They are doing. They're both doing well. We'll probably get into that a little bit more next week.
Fine.
We'll recap football next week and get in a little bit more because it'll be like then it is smooth sailing. It is diamond sport season.
Sure.
On all the way out.
And I do think there is something to be said about not saying a whole lot regarding the baseball team specifically until we see what they do this weekend.
And the next two weekends.
Right, the next 2 weekends, essentially.
Yeah, there'll be a lot to talk about next week.
For sure. And I think much could
series.
be made of where they seem to have climbed themselves out of already. But yeah, I think as much of a unexpected test as the Tennessee weekend was, the next 2 weekends are, I think, going to eventually tell a lot more of the tale of where this baseball team is going to go. So I agree with you. Maybe there's not a ton of point in divulging in that right this second.
It's Arkansas this weekend, and then the trip over to Austin the weekend after that. So lots to talk about there. What I leave out? Did I forget anything? Anything you want to...
We got buckyball still.
Softball is moving their Saturday game to a doubleheader tomorrow.
Good call.
So
good call.
they've got
And they are in Missouri.
Yes.
Well,
okay.
Let's close it out with this because
one less thing to watch on Saturday.
Okay, but that's another thing to watch before then.
To Nicole's point, weather this weekend.
Yeah.
If you're gonna go out to that or have a nice Easter egg hunt.
Right. I think more than anything else, hydrate because it's going to be. I think it's going to be one of the hottest and muggiest weekends of the year so far. Unless it just stays cloudy all day on Saturday, which is certainly a possibility. There will still be a nice little breeze. So at Kyle, it won't be that bad, but sunscreen and water for sure. And then the off chance that like a storm or two pops up by the afternoon. So Easter Sunday, I think, is a bigger chance for storms.
For storms. Well, there you go. That's what we got leading into the spring game. We'll have fun coverage out there. So be sure to check KBTX.com, the KBTX broadcast and the KBTX Sports app for everything we got going on there. Download the KBTX weather app while you're at it. You can have Max yelling at you about severe weather if you turn your sounds on. And so we'll be back next week to break down what happened in that spring game and talk a little Texas A&M baseball versus Texas. So for Max Crawford and Nicole Griffith, I'm Travis Brown. This is the Aggie Game Day Extra podcast. We'll see you next week.